All right. Welcome to episode number 31 of the Jake Blanchard podcast. Before we get started, wanted to give a shout out again to our sponsor, Fellowship Brand. Go check them out at fellowshipbrand.com for premium men's grooming products. Use the code JBP at checkout and get free shipping on your first order when you join the Fellowship. My guest today is the Crystal Ninja, Kellie DeFries. Kellie and her team are award-winning. They create and they provide folks with, you're going to have to explain this. They're gluing the crystals, Swarovski crystals, on all kinds of different items all around the world. And some of the coolest, most unique things that you've ever seen. She has 4 U.S. patents, 5 U.S. patents.
5 now, yep.
and has developed the Crystal Katana tool. Through that, I'm so excited to talk to you about your journey and your growth and becoming the Crystal Ninja. Kellie, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you. I am wonderful, wonderful. Thanks for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun. Thank you for having me. My name is Kellie, and everyone loves the name of the company, the Crystal Ninja. That's a cool name.
Yeah.
Well, I have to give all the credit to my husband because over 16 years ago, when I was just doing this for a hobby, I was into my graphic design job. I was into ceramics and mosaics, and my technique was always pointillism. It was always ... So I was doing these gigantic wall mosaics, and saw in a magazine a blinged out phone, and it was just little ... And I was like, oh, I could do better. So you can do better, you should do better, but careful what you wish for, because now it's like been years of ... nonstop. And I had to invent a tool to help pick up all these little, pieces one by one, because other tools were uncomfortable or they didn't work for us when we go to these different job sites. Some jobs are very hot. We're in garages, or they're very cold, and the standard industry tools just did not work. So I had to finagle and make what would work for us. And I never in my mind dreamed, number one, I would be doing this as a profession and selling tools and supplies to help hundreds of thousands of other people do this for their hobby or their job. So it's crazy, but yes, I'm a Swarovski specialist. I glue for them. They hire me for their clients and their projects in-house. And now we also have our private line of just glass rhinestones called Kira Kira. And so I think I skipped the part where my husband was joking with me when I was just dabbling in this. I was going so fast, playing with one night, just doing a hobby. And we were probably watching Enter the Dragon, one of my favorite movies. And he was like, you're doing that like a ninja. And I was like, yeah, a crystal ninja. And I was like, what? So we typed in the .com, and I bought it like 3 years before I ever even did it professionally. Like, it was just a silly hobby and fun, and it was no big deal. But now look at us. So everything is kind of labeled around Japanese weaponry, just because it's kind of fun and interesting, and I just kind of love it. So yeah, we got the katana, the tanto, the kubaton. So yeah, we just kind of go with it. Yeah, we got little fat ninjas we put on all of our pictures and little just fun stuff. So it's like we creep in and we crystallize and we leave. So it's like a ninja was here. So yeah, it's kind of funny, and there's a backstory, and it just kind of helps kind of with the whole brand. And so it's just, I never thought I would ever be a professional bedazzler. That's pretty much the layman's term for what we do, is we are professional bedazzlers.
Oh,
and
wow.
That's okay too. Yeah.
So you had mentioned earlier, so you have an art background. You've always been into art and artistry, and maybe take me through that a little bit.
Yeah, it's not that exciting. I went to McNeese State in Louisiana, Lake Charles, Louisiana, in graphic design, and my second major was ceramics and glaze technology, where I learned the chemistry to make all the glazes, which is kind of helping me now because I was already familiar with a lot of chemicals, and now our life is all glue. So that kind of rolled into it, and just all the study that you do in college as an art major, it kind of, ends you up. It's like it's building up to the end, I guess, or for the journey. And it just has always helped to have that art background and to understand that you can't just do one thing and have success. You have to do it over and over and over and over again. And that also helps from my ceramics and pottery background, is when you want a decent piece, you have the kiln gods can take it from you. It can blow up. You have to make 10, 20, 50, 100 items to get that one decent piece. And that practice has taken years. And now it's like no big deal for me to mess up on a couple of things. Oh, I got to do them over. It just might cost me a lot more money because it's super expensive, but that's how you get good. You do it over and over until it's the best that you can can do it, and then go from there. And so now it's no big deal for me to mess up on something and have to start over. It's almost like, oh yeah, here's the error. Here's my fail. So I'm always looking for myself to fail, to fix it. Even though I've done this so many times, there's so many different ways to do this and to do it differently and to learn from it, even that I've been doing it for so many years. It's just crazy how, like, this month is our 16-year anniversary as this company. So it's been crazy. It's been a long time.
You know, I'm picking up something you left there. There's kind of like this inevitability that you're going to mess up. And I love that mindset,
sure.
you know, in the standpoint of just like accepting the fact that you're
Right.
not going to be 100% all the time, and that it's not a stressor. It's just a part of doing that work.
I don't stress one bit. There's not a single project or job or gig that we get that I'm not like stressed about anymore, because I've been through the mess of it. I've worked in the dirtiest job sites. I've worked in the nicest, easiest ones, and put all that together. And it's like I bring a backup of everything I have, and then another backup of that. My staff has been trained. You might have like everyone has a go bag, but we have one too with all of your tools, and we have two of those. We have one that you bring on the plane. We have one that you pack in your checked bag. One of those is going to go missing. Which one is it? Sometimes neither one of them goes missing, and now you have to carry both things, which is a pain. But when you figure out one was missing, then you're like, oh, I have my second backup. Like, there's doubles of everything, and sometimes triple. And that's just how I've learned to always be prepared and over prepared, because you never know what can happen. I learned that mainly when I did a project over in London. I brought everything I could think of, and learned once I got on the job site that it was a complete construction renovation. There were hundreds of workers in the house doing all their different departments and things, and there was no power to the house because they had to bring it all in. There was wires and cords everywhere. And so I was like, wow, I don't have any lights, and I'm stuck in this little elevator for a month with no light. So again, my amazing smart aleck husband put one of his bicycle lights in my bag. He's like, oh, you might need some light. He was joking. That stupid little light that you see in most of my videos is because of him. And I was like, look at this guy. Now what do? Everybody on my staff has 2 headlights. We always bring headlights, because you can't expect your job site to supply you with what you need. So it's like I failed huge on that, because there was not like a Home Depot you can't go to. You're in London. There are not places like that. You have to plan way ahead and think about everything that can go wrong, and then try to go from there. But that was probably the biggest job I ever had to do. Plus it was international. Plus it was just getting used to, even though, yes, it's English and we speak English, like there was still a huge language barrier, just normal discussions with people that you meet. And then of course the money conversion, like you never know what is this. So we just had to double everything. If I was able to bring my assistant, was also my best friend, who's grown up with me since 5th grade. We went through art school together. So she's more amazing than I am at anything she does, but she had to have that Dr. Pepper every day. And so we found the one shop that had it, and it was like, what was it? 3 or 4 euros for one small can. So that was like $8 to $10 every soda pop, every can. And I was like, but when you're gone that long, you need those comfort pieces. Yeah. And that's all she wanted. I made sure she had all the Coke and Dr. Pepper she had. Like, well, it was so funny.
So I mean, obviously you've been all around the world. What did you say? Bejeweling things in the highest echelon that one can bejewel things. And like, where have you gone? What have you done? What are some of the things that are most notable to you and your team?
I mean, definitely that was the probably the biggest and the best project. And that was 10 years ago. I've gotten to do a couple of small projects in Germany, Berlin. We had a client there that I worked for as well. They were a company, Bling My Thing was there, and they brought me in to do some projects for a couple of weeks with them. And then I went over to Japan to teach, because now we teach how to do all of this. So the trade shows and the teaching kind of helps get me there, and then it helps ease the travel for when I also do a project. So I kind of team up and do everything all at once. But for the most part, it's been definitely the UK and then Japan. I can't get enough of Japan. It's so quiet. It's so clean. I cannot get enough of Japan. I freaking love it. I mean, as you can see, I have a little, I don't know if you can see that, but that's the Great Wave, and all in Swarovski gigantic pendants, and it's only 3 panels. There's 2 more out in the house. I couldn't fit them in this office. So yeah, so I am definitely in love with Japan. So and my husband was in the military and he spent time there, but we hardly ever traveled together. I brought him to two events that he's gotten to help me with in the one of them in Germany and one of them in Japan. But I've been to both places probably 3 or 4 times each. So it's usually those around Japan, Germany, Berlin, and I've taught in the Bahamas. Of course, that was ganged up on a vacation time too, which I rarely ever take. I've probably had 3 actual vacations in the past 16 years, but that's what you give up when you want to be your own boss or have your own business, which I never wanted to do in the first place, but here we are.
But here we are. Hey, I have, and for folks that are listening, I've been following your career as the Crystal Ninja for a long time.
Oh, thanks.
And we've been friends on social media for, I would say the better part of at least 10 years,
right?
Maybe longer than that, because we're cousins. We're
right.
First cousins.
That's right. Yep.
We haven't actually spent much time. I mean, we've texted maybe back and forth or whatever, instant messaged over Messenger or something like that.
Right.
But the thing that I noticed as I was watching this continue to build is all of a sudden, like, there was this episode on TV that you were on for West Coast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so I didn't understand kind of the ground. Like, I knew you were doing things on the back of phones. I knew you were doing the like bottles of this and some artwork. And I was like, oh man, that's really cool. Right. And then all of a sudden I'm watching West Coast Customs and you like blinged out the top of this Mini Cooper. And it was like a feature on an episode. And then I realized that you did a lot of work in the automotive space and you spent time at CEOs. And then maybe talk a little bit about that. What an interesting world that is.
Oh, for sure. That has a fun story. I'll try to be quick, but I was delivering some bronze tables to a client that we have in Los Angeles. And this again was many years ago. And we are huge fans of the West Coast Customs world and watch all the episodes and love all their that they do. And my husband said, if you don't drive to that shop and bring your business card, don't come home. That's what he told me. And I was like, ooh, okay. So I did. I drove and I was stuck in traffic. It took me, I want to say 3 to 4 hours to get from LA to Corona where they were. And right when I drove up, everyone had gone. It was right at 6 when they closed. The doors were locked. And I was like, oh crap, I'm in trouble. I got here, but no one's here. So I was writing on the back of one of my cards, my name is Kellie and I bling stuff out. Like I get so embarrassed and I don't have the confidence hardly ever that I'm really good at what I do. I'm really freaking good. But it's definitely hard. It's hard for everyone to say, come into a company like that and say, I think you might have a few clients that would like our services or whatever. So I try to be professional, but in my head, I'm like, I'm a blinger. So I wrote my card and I went up to the front door and I was opening it to put it was like a big postcard. I was putting it in and it opened up and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to, mess with your doors, trying to leave my card. And it was their upholstery master-ish. He was opening the door and he was like, what can I help you with? And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I just want to leave my card. I put crystals on things and I pointed to my SUV. I'm like, even cars. And then maybe you guys would, be interested in something. And he was like, well, and he looked down at my boots and I had some really nice, crazy boots on. And he was like, where'd you get those boots? And I was like, well, I put the stones on, but they're just from Nordstrom. Like, I'm not sure. What do you mean? He's like, can you come in for a second? And he was working on the seats for Rascal Flatts for their build. And he was confused on the way the country boots, the cowboy boots always have that like kind of flame look to them. And I was like, oh, well, I can help you with that. And I grabbed his soapstone and I drew him some little things. And I'm like, just do something like this and it'll be fun. And he was like, okay. So, and he gave me this emblem that was, they had cut out on their CNC machine to match the logo. And they were just gonna have it painted. He's like, can you put stones on this and bring it back to me in 2 days? And I was like, well, of course I can. So he gave me these pieces, not knowing me from Adam. I'm a stranger off the street, walked in. There was nobody around. It was just me and him. He gave me these pieces. I drove home with these pieces. And I was like, what happens if I lose these or break these or what? So I got the logo on these metal pieces, drove it back, and that, kind of got me in with them. That was my test, I guess. They showed, I showed them I could do it. I could definitely duplicate the logo. I had permission to do so. That's a huge thing that we teach, to not be duplicating logos you don't have permission for. And then they called me back for a few more other small projects, and then the projects got bigger and bigger. And so that's kind of how I got in. It was all because of my husband, again, with all his support, and his, what do you call it? His, tough love.
Yeah.
Don't come home if you don't bring that card.
Well,
okay.
and then you blinged out an entire Porsche Roadster replica as well,
Yes.
right? Was that
Yes.
late 50s Porsche replica?
Yeah, 1956 Porsche 356. Yep, and it was a wide body replica. And I wanted to do it because we go to SEMA, it's the largest automotive show in the world, and we have a little booth and we show our license plate frames and our emblems that can be quite spectacular. But I wanted to have more of a presence at the show. I wanted to reach those clients that really are looking for that high-end stuff. Because I mean, anybody can do emblems. Like, I teach how to do it for free. It's super easy. But if you don't have the physical labor part of the posture you have to sit there and do this for 39 days, or to lay down and do it, or to, cars are hard. They are a huge challenge, a huge physical challenge. And I wanted to let the world know what we can do. So I was able to, pay for everything myself. I got a few stones sponsored by Swarovski. Thank you very much. And the rest of it was on my bill. That was my marketing piece, my advertising piece. And the year before, I built, had a big Kevlar suit built for my beautiful girlfriend, April, and had her just walk the show, because at shows like SEMA, you can't just pass your card out. You can't touch anybody. You can't give them cards, and those kind of shows are miles long. They're huge. And our first year, they put us in the tent across the parking lot next to like tires and gaskets, and no one's gonna see you out there. So I put the suit on her to walk the show, and she must have got 100,000 people taking photos of her with her, because she was like this beautiful, gleaming, real Kevlar All-Stars suit, or I'm sorry, Alpine. Yeah, All-Stars. And it was incredible. Like, they were like, so many people said, that is marketing genius. And I was like, well, I'm not always smart, but when I am, watch out. Watch out.
For sure.
Right. And so, so that is pretty much what kind of confirmed, because then they said, oh, we saw you on West Coast Customs. And so it was another year, and then I made the car, and then everyone starts putting it together. So it takes years to build up that kind of recognition. And so once we did the car, after I didn't know what kind of car to do, because it's an automotive show. Everybody has all the fancy stuff. I can't afford to do, like, everyone has a Lambo. I'm not going to do that. So I let my husband pick. I said, I want something I can afford because I'm still paying for it. The company's still paying for it, and something that's cool. And so he found that, and I was like, that's too cool. Like, I'm not cool enough for that. Like, what is that? I never even knew about those cars. But so it was a really cool build that he found. It was only 1 in 6 in the world that were like that. And it was a lot of fun to work on, and you kind of have to go all in because that's the 45 grand you're putting in for a car that you're not really going to own or drive, because it was meant to show. What is it, 35,000 for all the stones to go on it, all the man hours I put in, 462 hours, all with one tool. And that was also the marketing campaign to show how good this tool was. It did the whole car, all those stones. And so we showed SEMA, we wanted to have it in our booth, and they said, no, you're going to have it on the front steps out front. So we're like, score. That was cool to get that kind of recognition from SEMA. And I went there with the hood not finished, because it was like 7 days we were there. And so they wanted us to work on it, or me on it, during the show. So that was really cool to have people watch it get worked on during SEMA. It was outside. And there was, there's tons of, naysayers. Oh my God, you ruined that Porsche. Oh my God, all that stuff. I get that all the time. But the coolest compliment that I got when I walked up one morning, because we Windex it every morning, because it is glass. People say, oh my God, how do you wash it? You just wash it and then put some Windex on it. It's glass, people. It's not that hard. So I was walking up, and there was this giant, very mean man. He looked just like Paul Tuttle. Like, do you know who that guy is? That big motorcycle dude. He looked meaner than the dad on Paul on that show. And he was he was all like just grumbly, just mean face, looking at this car. And I just knew, I was like, oh, he's going to give me a new one. Like, okay, sir, are you going to be all right? He's like, I'm really upset. And I was like, okay, let me know. Can I help you? How can I help you out? What can I do for you to make you not upset? And he said, well, my friend, way over in South Hall. And I don't know if you're familiar with how big the convention center is.
Oh, it's huge.
Massive. He said his friend was dissing this car and said what a piece of crap it was. He had to come see how horrible this was. And this older, angry man was mad at his friend because he saw the beauty in it, and he saw how much work I put into it and how perfect it was, and he's going to go slap his friend. So that was awful.
That's awesome.
Like, there you go. So I made this. So I didn't tell him I had done it. I just told him I was here to wipe it down. He thought I was just one of the people that wipe cars down. And I was like, well, hi, then my name is Kelly, and I made this car. Like, I didn't want to tell him it was me because he was mad. Like, I didn't want to be swinging at me. So
yeah.
Yeah, he was mad at his friend for complaining about the artwork that I had done. And he really respected it and gave me a big old hug and thought it was great. And, at that time, somebody else walked by and said, you ruined that Porsche, blah, blah, blah. Like he said, the 356, and we're both like, it's a replica. If you were that much of a car guy, you would know it was a replica. Like, yeah. It's so funny to have all the car guys come at me, and I was like, well, actually, so,
yeah.
But yeah.
So
it was kind of fun to do something like that, and we got tons of clients from it. So it was, it was a great project, and it proved how amazing this tool was and still is. So yeah, it was good stuff.
Yeah. And you talked on something that I wasn't necessarily, I didn't even really think about prior to this conversation earlier, which was posture.
Yes.
Like
yeah.
so ergonomically,
right.
The toll that it must take on your body to do a repeating movement like that. How do you manage that? What are the things you do? Are you do you like kind of warm up in the morning? Right? So you have like a special
Totally. I totally should. I probably wouldn't be as aged in my joints if I would start doing that. But yeah, we definitely stretch while we're doing stuff like that. But when we're in our studio working, we always stress to sit straight. I have a bad habit of sitting on my leg and sitting funny. But yeah, you just have to straight, and we've learned to wear more glasses. There's 4 or 5 pairs of glasses around here, because if something you can't see it, you shouldn't bring your body towards it. You should still be sitting up and putting your glasses on just to see your items. So that's where a lot of people kind of make that mistake. They not only have the incorrect reading glasses on, if that's what they have, but they hunch over, and then that's a problem, because then all your pain goes to your spine, and that's not good. Most of all my pain is in my shoulder blade, because I really just move my wrist a lot, and I barely ever move anything else. So I've just kind of figured out a way, like my first 3 years of doing this, I was numb and in pain. Like it was the neck pain, the back pain, the shoulder, all of it was just not good. So I was like, let me figure out the best way to do this. And so feet on the floor, back straight, all the stuff. And it's pretty much what it is. It's just like having as good a posture and when you're in your studio, but when you're not, it's very difficult. I'm stuck on ladders up 12 feet. That part, you just have to suck it up. It sucks. Yeah, a lot.
And I was also randomly, this was a couple years ago, there were some live feeds of you through a local news station, as well as you were was that the car, or was that something else?
I'm not certain. We've had a few news shows. Yeah, I'm not, if I knew what color it was, I could probably figure out what it was, but I'm not certain. Yeah, because there was quite a few news that came through while we worked on the Porsche, because it wasn't here in San Diego, and we had a giant warehouse that everything was in, so they would come through and do some filming. So it was probably the car. Yeah.
Gosh, that's so fascinating. And then what are you thinking about when you're doing that? Like something so for me, my biggest fear would be to do what you do.
Oh yeah.
To sit down and like do a repetitive task, though the final creation is like this really great artistic expression. And though that you have complete control over every aspect of how it turns out, like there's something so beautiful about that. But the act of doing it, I hardly like, I'm not one of those guys that'll wax a car all day, like in my driveway, and then like stand back and be like, yeah, like, no, like I hardly dry it off. Right. So
totally. Yeah. And I'm the same. I go through a car wash with my SUV. I've never once washed it myself or polished it or anything, because this doesn't interest me at all. But for some reason, I don't mind sitting in weird positions in front of a car and, for days and days at a time. For some reason, it doesn't bother me a bit. Maybe because it sparkles and shines, and the sparkle makes me happy. I don't know. But it's just kind of, it has to be in you. If it's not in you, then we've had a lot of people want to come in and they see, our social media, and they're like, wow, you did this and you did that and you did this. And we're like, yeah, so here's your training. Come visit us for a day and we'll put you through a couple of projects. And, to hold something like a KitchenAid mixer, it's quite beefy. Yeah. It weighs 17 pounds. Having that in your lap or having to lean it or whatever, it'll kick someone's butt. Like it's having an object that large. It's not a cute little shoe. It's not, easy to work. They're like, I can't do this. I'm like, yeah, we knew you couldn't. So that's why we didn't even take your resume. So it's very strenuous, and to keep posture and to keep your strength and your rhythm of adding all of these crystals, you still have a pattern to monitor. You still have a formula and a budget. If someone uses too many small stones, that can ruin the budget. If someone pulls the wrong stones, like the cost of these crystals are quite expensive. And sometimes we get 5,000 of one item. And years ago, I did 5,000 perfume lids for Angel perfume. And I would send home kits to my assistants, because it was before I really had a decent working area in the house. And I'd make everything, I'd write everything out. And then a week later, someone emailed and I've run out of these really tiny ones. Can I get more? I said, how did you run out? You're only supposed to have 5 on every single lid. Yeah. Well, they decided that their fill pattern was a little better. So they used all these tiny stones, which cost more than the big stones. So I had to have them bring back their kit, and I paid them, and I had to let them go because I now have to strip all those stones off, and using 2-part epoxy, it takes pretty much a hammer and chisel, and redo all of that work, and then pay for all the stones that were ruined because you can't reuse them. So paying attention and following instructions is huge with any job, but you'd be surprised how people would come in and they say, oh, well, I thought this might look better. We didn't hire anyone here to let the client know what looks better. They paid for what the look they wanted. That's the task. We show them different options, and then they choose that fill pattern because it costs that much for each different way. And a lot of times people don't think about that. They think, oh, well, just to cover it, it's fine. I'm like, well, how many stones was it going to take you to do all those stones? It all adds up. So that's the part that's taken me years to figure out pricing and all that. But we even teach classes on how to price your stuff. And some people, there's like 2 or 3 things that I show in the pricing class that are like mind-blowing simple. And they're like, oh my God, I would have never thought of that. I'm like, well, because I'm really a kindergartner in my head. And it's all about dots and spots and how many are there. And then I'm good. So but it's a lot adds up to all this.
So yeah, probably one of the most fascinating things about your journey to me is the creation of an actual product.
Right. Totally.
You know,
product line, all of it.
You put yourself in the problem space, and then you started using the tools that were available. You obviously recognize that there were some things that weren't optimal about it. Maybe could you describe what it was like when you started, and then you've improved upon the discipline and in what ways?
Sure. So when I started, the industry standard is beeswax. It's beeswax on the end of a stick, and that's pretty much what people use because it's just sticky enough to lift your embellishment or your crystal, bring it to the glue, and that's that. It's just that simple of a task. But when, let's say, for instance, we were working on the Mini Cooper in the garage at West Coast Customs, it was 96 degrees in that garage at all times. There was no way to get colder. They had fans. They gave us a fan, which was amazing. But beeswax does not like 96 degrees at all. So it was melting everywhere. It wasn't the right tool. I had another silicone tool that was given to me by a friend that was from Japan. And those didn't pick up the bigger stones. They only liked the little stones. We had 4 or 5 different tools to help us do one job. And I was like, this is a pain in the butt. So it was just always the frustration. I never really knew I could figure it out and make something work, one tool work for all of our projects. But it was just from learning and that irritation that I was always like, having to do this massive job, a ton of responsibility, a ton of money invested into it. And I'm hating the tool I'm using because it's not going fast enough. I can't move as fast as I want because the tool is failing or it's smearing and now we have to clean it. Or you drop it and it gets, there's dirt on the floor. Garage floors are usually dirty. And it sticks into that and then you can't clean that. It just beeswax tools are just gross. They have always grossed me out. So I was like, I don't like this. Let me stop using it. And so I just figured out something else better. And then I did a job actually on a whole ice cream truck in New York City. And it was 37 degrees. And that's where you learn that beeswax does not like the cold and it will not pick up any of the stones because it was so cold. And on that job site there, they had heaters finally because the glue wouldn't cure. It was so cold. The stones were just kept sliding off. They would just slowly, within a couple of hours, start sliding off. And we're like, you guys have to get some heaters in here. This is glue. It needs the heat. So they finally got tiny little space heaters and we'd have to preheat the body of the car or the ice cream truck only where we worked. And for me to get my wax to work, I put it under my fingernails, just every fingernail, and then had my tub of stones and I kind of just touched them all and then did them like this. And then I just kind of developed a way for me on that job to figure this out because of the freezing cold. And they're like, oh my God, look at her. She really is a ninja. And I was like, oh, they think I know what I'm doing? Okay, I'm just miserable. It's 37 degrees. I got 6 layers on. It's filthy in here. This is the worst job site ever. I will never do this again. Like I have developed a environmental hazard fee on our jobs when we cannot control the space or the environment, the climate and stuff like that. So I'm like, that was a huge learning because of all the things that went wrong because I was not prepared to know what to expect. It was like my first time going to New York City. Yeah, it was horrible,
Yeah.
but I figured it out. So it all worked out, and I got to luckily come home, and I won't ever do that again. But yeah, it's been a long road to with the tools because, and again, my husband helped again. He had me lay out all of the tools that I was using or knew of, and some I purchased to just to try them out. Like I still have all of it. It's all upstairs in storage, all the research and development. And he laid everything out, and he's like, "What do you like about all of these? And what do you not like about all of these?" And we're gonna do cross, get out what you don't like and keep what you like and all that stuff. So he helped me kind of narrow it down. And then after a few weeks of boiling up different chemicals, I ruined a couple of his nice all-clad pots in the kitchen with my brewing and my formulas, but I bought him all new pots now. So it's come to where this material, it's a synthetic wax. It's not wax, but I use the word synthetic wax because most people would understand that the beeswax is what most people use, but it's a synthetic wax, so it's not even wax. And that's what works to pick up the stones. It's just sticky enough. It doesn't leave any residue, and it lets the stone fall off or the embellishment fall off into the glue as you're working. And then the opposite side helps you position or place it. It has 2 tips on it for very tiny stones if we're only doing very tiny stuff, or take that off. And then we use the larger side for the bigger stones, like on the cars. And that's it. There's no motor, there's no batteries. It's light as a feather. So yeah, here we are. And 5 patents later, I have coverage on how the process that it is manufactured, because we manufacture these here, we build them and then ship them all over the world. And we're in Hobby Lobby and Michael's Arts and Crafts. But the patents cover how it's produced, the components that are used in it, and also 2 utility patents and 2 design patents. So the design patents cover the way it looks. So the conical end, the pointy here, the shaft, the thickness, all that stuff, all that put together. And so there's been lots of knockoffs that have already come out, but it took them 3 years to catch up. Usually, it takes maybe 1 year. Once you file for your patent, the knockoffs are already out because they search all that stuff just to compete or to knock it off. So it took them about 3 years to do it, and they've definitely knocked it off and made it even cuter and sparklier, but that wasn't my goal to make a sparkly tool. We need tools that work, not pretty tools. That's just always been my thing. I don't want something pretty to work. I want it to work. And then that was the task. So now we've got a team in the back end that are going to handle our cease and desist process and send out those letters. And, we're finally getting Amazon covered as far as just the tool. We've had plenty of people that they go to, let's say Michael's or Arts and Crafts or Hobby Lobby, they purchase it with their coupon, put it in their Amazon store, and they're not an authorized seller, because once you resell something, like we have a MAP agreement on our tools, the pricing must stay the same, and then they go below that with Amazon. So that triggers us to send them a cease and desist, but we had to file for brand registry. There was at one point last year where someone reported our tool for being counterfeit. So that nicked our account. And then we had to start over proving with invoices from our manufacturers that make the pieces and the parts and all the stuff. And then send all the patents. We're like, we're the real deal. What the heck? So, good for them. They put a little twist in our wires, but it's all taken care of now. And then now Amazon has a transparency program that a logo, a little barcode or a QR code or whatever goes on your packaging. That way no other company can have that, because if we're packaging them, we have the ability to do that. And so now that's going to help knock out those people that do that, because Mike doesn't have that barcode. They can no longer go to another seller, get their supply, and then resell it in their Amazon store. It's against Amazon transparency. So that's been a huge project. I can remember when I just flew in at the end of February from an event it was in Dallas, and we were on the phone with Amazon transparency, purchasing the QR codes. It's been a year to get that to actually be activated in their system. So everything just takes so long. It just takes patience, which I have lots of, because this is what I do. I don't care. We have how many more years will it take? I'll be here trying to do it. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, Amazon is a huge thing to try to conquer and fight at the same time. And I think we sold 2,000 tools this past month on Amazon because our numbers are going up where others are going down. So it's kind of, it's happening. It's working. Yeah.
For a hobby, and for
Yeah. Right.
someone to buy a domain in 3 years, just like laughing
Right.
in the living room,
Right.
say
Right.
whatever, 19 years ago, 16 years ago, whatever, is
Right.
just kind of laughing about it. And then all of a sudden, being in, in these,
Right.
patent discussions and,
Totally.
manufacturing processes
Never.
and
Yeah,
all
and
those
it's
types of things.
exhausting to me. And I keep telling, I hired a lady, you've spoken with her, Susie, to run my company, and I keep threatening her almost weekly. It's Willy Wonka time. I'm out of here. I'm going to send out 10 golden tickets. Pick one of them. I'm out. Bye. Because I'm not the business person. I can't stand any of this. I don't want to run a business. I just want to put my dots and spots, sit in the corner and make dots and spots and make people happy and teach them how to do dots and spots. That was a huge thing in the beginning. After I kind of dabbled in it for 3 or 4 years, I worked for other companies that were doing this, over in New York, like some really bigger names that are no longer in business. I worked for them and they were like, you cannot teach anyone what you do. You cannot show them your tools. You cannot, do this. I'm like, but I showed you. Like, before I came along, you had some like straight lines and geometry. I just showed you how to make flowers and frogs. And like, I showed you, why can't I show them? Well, you work for me now. You can't show them anything. Your process is my process now. And I'm like, that sucks. So for a couple of years, I couldn't share and teach and show. But once I got rid of them and got all my contracts done with, I'm like, I'll show anybody now. Like, this is how you do it, you guys. And people think, oh, well, they're going to take your business. They're going to take your stuff. No, we are global. We work for people around the world. We don't work with people at the T-ball park. We don't do the flea markets anymore. We're not there. If people learn our stuff and go there, that's great. If they want to branch out and be global, that's wonderful too. I can give you all the tools and the recipe, but you still have to put in the work, or it's not going to happen. You still won't know what it's like to have to call and say, I need a $6 million insurance policy to go on this job site. How do I get that? Well, welcome to my world. Like this,
Yeah.
all this to go to one job site in Houston to iron stones on a felt wall. I had to do so much behind the scenes to just get on that job site. I was like, really? And that's why they didn't hire someone that's just off Etsy. Like, that's not what those corporations want. They want someone that knows all the rules, the regulations, the OSHA, the stuff. And I know that too. So it's like, that's kind of what because of the challenge, I like all those challenges. If it was just bedazzling all day, I get pretty bored because there's no challenge in that. I'm like, who cares? That's easy.
Well, and I think you're illustrating a really important point, which is staying in your zone of genius, right? Your zone of genius is the execution and the beautification of whatever object or item that you're doing and the artistic expression that comes along with that.
Right.
Whereas like the dissatisfactors or the dissatisfiers in that ecosystem are chasing down anybody who's committing some kind of fraud or
Yes.
in a lot of maybe the business and accounting aspects of some of that stuff. You recognize that, you go find the who, and then you continue to run your business in a meaningful, fun way, though you can't avoid all of it. But if you could do like 80% of all the fun stuff,
Totally.
that's fun for you. That's idea.
Yep. It's like that. There's a lot of behind the scenes that goes on that's not fun and not shiny and not pretty, that allow us to be fun and shiny and pretty. So it's kind of been a good to be home for this past year, because it really has given us more time to dial in to those not so pretty things. It's not cool that I've got 5 lawyers, that we have to call up almost weekly and, get things straight and send out, notices or to stop something from happening or whatever. Because if you want to build a brand, you have to protect it.
Yeah.
That's all I have to keep telling myself, because I don't want to have to call someone and say, oh my God, you got to stop doing this. You can't do that. Like, I don't want to be that person. But if they're portraying that they're us, or they're trying to make it look like their tool is our tool, I have to step up and protect it, or why bother? So that's what many people told me years ago. You'll never get a patent. No, you'll never get a patent. That's what they told me. don't bother. You'll never get a patent. Well, now I have 5. And now those people are the ones selling the fake tools and the infringing tools. So it's those people that you watch out for. Like they like to get up close and see how you do everything. And then right in front of your face, they do what they do. And that just shows people's true colors. But if you want to build something, you have to protect it, or, why not? Why bother? So
in that same vein of thought, I mean, I'm sure you've learned a couple other lessons in the last 16, 17 years. If somebody's not just getting started, say in the space that you're in, but getting started in general in business, where you're especially in artwork, where there's some perceived value, you got to find the right target or the customer. You have to go find where they are and really start kind of exchange. Like, what did you learn from that experience, or what advice would you give folks?
Because I started so long ago, it was before Facebook, it was before YouTube, it was before anyone could just pop up with a Facebook store and then make an ad and then reach the people that they wanted. It was before all of that. So I did start. I had a table at the flea market here in San Diego, at Kobe's Flea Market. I had my little cell phone cases, I had my little stuff, and I didn't sell anything. And then I moved up to the fancier flea market in the neighborhood called La Jolla, and had all my stuff and had a tent and nicer things. And you spend hundreds, if not thousands, on just your setup and your samples. These are not cheap. Like this is a really, really old one that I've got here. I was trying to put back together for a class. But you've got all these samples, you have to present them and show them, and these cost hundreds to make. All these stones are super expensive. So just your samples are a huge investment. And because I call them samples now, because no matter what you could make, they always want it in a different color and with their name on it, because now you're doing custom work. You're not doing ready to sell, here's this. And the other thing is that there's 15,000 different cell phone models. If you're into cell phone cases, you will never pick the right one that customer wants. There will never be, oh, I'll have that one, and they'll buy it and they'll walk away. It never happens. So you have all this stuff, and we have buckets of it. Like my goal is to hang all of it and have a class on it one day. So I stopped doing all of those. And I just used my samples to show my work. And then it was all word of mouth. Once somebody would say, oh, well, I'll do one and I'll do this design and I'll take photos and then send that out. And I have another photo in my portfolio to help sell the next one. So it was all word of mouth. I learned that the client that is going to spend this kind of money is not at the flea market. So quit going to the flea market, Kelly. Stop this. So I would try to, go do other events that were more like local vendors type events that were like in a event hall or something like that. Again, those clients are not there. People that go to, little pop-up sales and things are always looking for a deal. And this is not stuff that I'm willing to discount anymore. Knowing all the hours and the cost that goes into it, I'm not going to those events to show my stuff, because that's not the clientele that I'm looking for. So slowly but surely, just having my work in forums, back when there were forums, like that's where I got some of my customers. People think that, oh, you must have a ton of customers in San Diego. You've gotten that whole market. Not actually, no, I think I might have 3 customers in San Diego all these years, like the same 3 people. Every now and then they'll pop in and order some really spectacular things. But I don't go out looking for any local work. I really don't like talking to people. I really don't. I like to be in my introverted self and just stay and just do my work. But you do have to sometimes go out and speak with people. But it's all about word of mouth, and my packaging was on point. My business cards were beautiful. Everything was gift wrapped perfectly. We do repairs if they drop something or need something touched up. So it's just taken years to get all of that. And now we still do a ton of gluing, but not as much as, like, I was doing probably 10 cell phones a week back in the day. And now we do better financially teaching and selling the supplies. So there's more, I've learned that there's more of a profit margin in the teaching, and now we teach for free, but having to sell all the supplies, because putting those things together, they see your item, like, how do I make that? And I teach them how to make it. Well, then they want the supplies. And I'm like, well, oh, I don't sell supplies. You just have to find them here and there. And people didn't like that. So I learned if I'm going to show anything in my camera, everything in my camera has to be available to sell or a reference to sell them. So I have the Amazon affiliate, stuff like that. And it always bugged me because I don't want to sell people supplies. I was like, well, this is easy. You find this here and find this there. And like I found it at Walmart or wherever, and they want it packaged and ready to go and hit the buy it now button and make it easy for them. And they get it in the mail, and then they may or may not ever use it. That's the part of that really is so funny, is like, you just paid me $300 for this kit and you didn't want to use it. What are you doing? Use your stuff. What are you doing? So,
yeah, it's so funny because I think we've all experienced that at some time or another. We have getting into a subculture, getting into a new hobby or idea, and then it gets there, and then you're like, how do I fit this into my life?
Right.
And then that becomes difficult, especially with the detail-oriented nature of what you do. I imagine it's pretty difficult.
Right. It can be. And it's like they're in my Facebook group and they're, I got all my stuff, but I haven't opened it in 6 months. I bought it from you at such and such trade show or whatever. And I was like, your glue is going to go bad. Open your kit and use it. Like, do something. Grab something. Grab anything. So it's kind of funny that a lot of people just don't even use it. They get so wrapped up into the fun sparkle and the ease of me showing it, because it is that easy, but they're scared to get into it. So, luckily we have a ton of people that want to get into it, and they're doing amazing projects. And some people don't realize that I made it's on Facebook. It's called How to Crystallize 101. And it's a group that I made I go in and I give instruction, or I just pull old projects that I don't have a class for. And I just say, here's the glue I used. Here's how we did it. Here's all the stones. And here's a photo or a video. And they can go off that. And then they have to do it too. If they want to put anything in the site, they have to know how they made it or show what they used to make it. Since I have to answer all the questions, you have to answer them too. So it's like a back and forth. And I use that group a lot to find people that are great at what they do. Like, I go through my group and say, oh, she's on the list, put her on this list, and she lives in this city, in this town. So if we ever do something there, she's going to get a call, or he's here and he's going to, and we've done that a few times when we have a certain project that's off site that we have to go to. We say, hey, can you help us out for this project? And we definitely pay everyone. And they show, and they're like, what? I got to work with the Crystal Ninja team. And I'm just thankful that they showed up. So yeah, I scout all kind of groups and pages just to see, how they practice business. A lot of times the one thing that just kind of, it's sad, but if we see any of the logos on their site that shouldn't be, like if they're making a Chanel t-shirt, Chanel doesn't make t-shirts. That's not an authorized reproduction of that logo. So we can't use them on a job site, because sometimes we work directly for people that work for Chanel. So we can't have that association, and we have to be very strict about respecting other companies and not, making tons of Louis Vuitton stuff and putting it on a Starbucks cup. And like, that's a no-no, and that's just bad business. So we have to stay away from that. So it's interesting to see what we learn from others and how we even help search for our assistance when we need help, because we can't do it all. We have to have help from lots of other people too sometimes.
Well, Kellie, what a phenomenal journey you took me on today. I've learned so much about this world, this crystallizing world. Hey, as we're beginning to wrap up here, where can folks find you and your company online? And again, just kind of like in general, folks that might be either interested in starting this and where they can learn, and then also where they can see some of the work you've done.
Yep. So our main site is crystalninja.com. And we have a small gallery link there, but we have all the supplies, and we've been putting the how-tos in the products of like, here's the glue, here's a video using the glue, stuff like that. So the main site is crystalninja.com. And then we have our gallery site, put an S on it, crystalninjas.com, and you'll see the car and the wall and the elevator and the Vespa, and we'll do some bigger projects, and that's just more like a brochure site. And we have clients log in to share private projects with them. And then our YouTube is The Crystal Ninja. We just hit 13,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we're actually working on another car right now, and it's going to be launched. We started on a few months ago, and the lawyer that's writing the rules, because we're going to be giving it away. We're going to be giving away a car that I'm crystallizing right now on YouTube, and that is to lift the subscribers. And we can't talk about it right now because the lawyer says stop talking about it. So we get all these rules written out, which should happen in about another couple of weeks. And so that'll be mainly on YouTube, which is pretty awesome. And people on our previous lives, they type in the chat, they ask the questions. So while we're gluing on the car, we answer the questions and all that. So it's kind of fun and interactive. And on Instagram, I just hit 90,000 followers, and it's also the Crystal Ninja on Instagram. And then we have the Crystal Ninja Facebook page, and that's just kind of a repeat of Instagram, and we put sales there and stuff. And I go live from there a lot. It's much easier to go on the Facebook Crystal Ninja page to share it. And then we have the How to Crystallize 101 on Facebook, and you have to answer 3 questions and agree to the terms to get in. You'd be surprised how many people don't read the instructions, and I have them in the photo of the backdrop saying you must answer all 3 questions. And so yeah, it's a small group, but it's pretty thorough once they realize that I mean business. Like, if you can't read these rules and instructions and agree to them, then I can't have you in my group, because it's all about following instructions. So, but
it.
yeah, we're everywhere that you can look.
Absolutely. And I'll put a bunch of links in
Awesome.
the podcast as well, and send folks
Awesome.
your way if they're interested on clicking those links. Kelly, what an honor for me to one, catch up with you, and two, to learn about the Sparkle Empire that you've built. What a really cool thing to have watched from a distance and then have an opportunity to learn a little bit more about today.
Awesome. Right back at you. This was great. I appreciate it.
All right, Kelly. Hey, thanks for your time today. Have a great day.
All right. You too.
Bye.